Hey, welcome to Journey Online. Thanks for watching with us. Have you ever noticed that sometimes people treat faith like it's this standalone issue, like it's its own entity, it's got its own life? But the truth is, it really doesn't. In my background, I kind of grew up in a world, and it looked this way to me, is that people would wake up on God's day, Sunday, the Lord's day, church day. You wake up on God's day, and you put on your God clothes. When I was growing up, those were called church clothes. Those were your good clothes. You couldn't play in those. You couldn't mess those up. Those were your church Sunday go to meeting clothes. You wake up on the God day, put on your God clothes. You grab your God book. You go to the God place. You smile at all the God people, standing inside. You go in and you sing your God songs. We do some of that stuff. You listen to the God sermon or message or talk. And then you say goodbye to your God people and leave the God place and go home, and you put down your God book and you take off your God clothes, and then you go back to real life. That's exactly right. You go back to real life. It's like we did the God thing on the God day with the God stuff and the God people, God subject, and then we put it down and moved on to, we have work life, we have home life or family life, you have your God life, your faith life, those just little compartments. And they all kind of separately, we have our stressed out life, whatever your life is, we have all of those things. The problem is life was never intended to work that way. As a matter of fact, maybe we can say it this way, if God only lives in the God moments, he never actually shapes the real life moments. If God only works in the God moments, if he only works in the time I set aside in the morning or the time I set aside on Sunday, and then I live my life separate from it, and I hope to have a life that I'm pleased with or I'm proud of, it doesn't work that way. The truth is, God never gets a chance to shape us in our real life moments. We've been in a series the last few weeks, and there's been 3 words that we focused on. The first one was the word follow. It came from Jesus' invitation to some people in his day. He said, follow me, and I will make you fishers of men. If you'll follow me, I'll make you something better. I'll give you a life bigger, better, more important, more satisfaction, more contentment. The outcome of following me will be great. He said it was more than a belief system, though. It's not just what you think. It's not what you've learned. Follow me wasn't that. Follow me is a surrender of our will. It's about surrendering our plans and saying, you know what? I will put down my agenda and I'll follow your agenda. So it's a lot different than what a lot of us might believe following Jesus is. It's becoming an apprentice of his. It's saying, listen, I'm going to follow you to become more like you. That's different than I'm going to invite you into my life and I'm going to pray that you'll bless the things I want blessed. It's a very different thing. Follow is the first word. Last week we kind of dug into this word formed. What does it mean to be formed by God? We're all being formed by something. It's something we learned every day. We've all been formed by our upbringing, by our environment, by the things we watch, the things we hear, by the things we've chosen to believe. We're all being formed. And being formed is a continuing process. The question is, what's forming us? That as a follower of Jesus, our role is to follow him, to lay down our agenda, become his apprentice, and allow him to mold and form us without us fighting back, without us wanting our own way. And today we want to get to the last of the words, and the word is faithful. What does it mean to be faithful? Now, I'm going to tell you, in my life, I grew up going to church a lot. As a matter of fact, was there all the time. Maybe why I do what I do for a living, because I don't know, somewhere early in my life I decided if we're going to be there all the time, maybe I ought to get paid for it or something. But church was just a big part of my life, good, bad, or indifferent. It was a big part of my life. What I noticed the old people saying a lot, now let me just stop. I don't know where your stage of life is, But let me just say, when you're 10, 12 years old people's anybody over about 25. And so this is what old people would say. At church a lot, people would talk to him and they would kind of in a serious moment say, you know, my greatest hope in life is that when it all comes to an end, when my life, my last breath is taken, I want God to look at me and say, well done, good and faithful servant. I want to be found faithful. And that sounded a little corny to me as a kid. I will have to say, the longer I've lived, the more I feel that way. That I just want to believe, while very much imperfect, while very much flawed, while sometimes falling down and having to get back up, while sometimes wishing I could do better than I have, that I want to believe by the end of life, as I look back, I can say I've lived a faithful life. I've been faithful to my wife, faithful to my family. I've been faithful to my church, to my community, to my friends, to things that matter to me. That I will have been faithful and my life will have mattered, and that as God would look at me, he wouldn't say, you killed it, you were perfect, but he would look at me and say, listen, you were faithful. And I have a feeling people who are watching this right now, you're not doing it accidentally, that there's some of that in you too, that there's a piece of you that goes, listen, I don't want people to look at me and go, that guy's just spastic. He lived his life 400 directions. That woman, I have a feeling there's something in you that you would want to be seen as faithful, someone that could be counted on. I want to talk to you, what does it mean to be faithful and what does it not mean? It's kind of our subject for the day. There's a passage in the Bible where Jesus begins to talk about and give us some clues to how to be faithful. It may be different than what you think. The outcome of today may be different than what most of us have believed. I'll say this, sometimes this passage of Scripture has kind of been taken and made into a kid's song kind of thing. When that happens, I think sometimes we undervalue. Jesus was giving this parable because he was trying to teach something that was really important. So he put it in words. It's what Jesus always did. When something was huge in importance, he often brought it down to such a simple thing that we can make it into a kid's song. This is what the verse says in Luke 7:24. It says, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise. Let's just stop for a minute. It doesn't say anyone who listens to my teaching, because sometimes that's what we feel. I go to church, I listen to a podcast, I read a book, I have a quiet time or a devotion. It doesn't say anyone who listens. It says anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise. It's not just a hearing, it's not just a knowing. It is I allow it to become part of me and live it out. I hear it and follow it. That's who is wise. It's like a person, he said, who builds a house on a solid rock. In our world today, when there's rock in the ground, big rock, a lot of times we actually will move our site to build to somewhere else. We'll move it over. We'll adjust it because rocks usually mean it's going to cost a lot. It's going to be harder. I lived in a place for a bunch of years, not too far from where I'm standing right now, maybe a few hours, and everything was rock. When you started to build, you'd go have test holes dug because it could be $20,000 or $30,000 difference in foundation on your home just on the amount of rock. If there was a lot of rock and you couldn't move, it meant dynamite. And it meant chipping and chiseling and digging out and all the way down. And then we put rebar and concrete and footers, and then you build up. But first you had to go down to go up. It was super complicated. In the world where Jesus was teaching, it was a normal thing. They didn't have all of that equipment. They didn't have all that methodology. And so often what they would do is they would look for solid rock, and that's where they'd build. Now, it was great because it's solid. It was horrible because it's difficult. It took more time. It took more money. It took more skill. Everything was raised and elevated in difficulty, except the outcome made it worth it. As he begins to talk about a wise person is one who listens to my teaching and follows it, that's like a wise person that would have his foundation on something that's immovable. And it's what he's telling us. That you have to choose, if you want to be found faithful, you have to choose your foundation carefully. And here's the reason he put it in simple terms. Though the rains come in torrents and floodwaters rise, and they have these flash floods that would move through the region of the world where he was standing, he said, though that happens and the winds beat against the house, it won't collapse. You know why? Because it's built on bedrock. He said, you're going to go through stuff. You're going to face difficult days. If you think there won't be storms, just go to bed and wake up a few more times. You're going to take a beating at some time in life. And he's just saying faithful has to do with what you're built on. It has to do with bedrock. Wise people listen to him and follow him. Not just listen to him and agree with him, they actually do what he teaches, and it's just like building on a solid foundation, which leads us to say, what's my foundation that I'm built on? As you begin to dig into that, I think it's important. If we put it into our three words, follow, formed, and faithful, maybe it would look like this. It would say that to follow means to acknowledge God as my designer. If we were building a structure, it's saying that who's going to design this thing? Who is the one with the ultimate say in what it's going to look like, what it's going to be like, what it's going to be? And that is to acknowledge God as my designer. It's when we quit saying it's my life. I'll do what I want. It's my life. And we say God made me. And he chose to put me here. It is his life that I am just stewarding, that I am trying to live out. And I'm not trying to get him in on my act. I'm trying to become the person he created me to become. So he's my designer. Maybe we'd say formed would be this in our little analogy. Formed would allow the outcomes to be determined by the designer. It's not just saying he is my designer. This is where it says you will hear and you will follow what I say. You'll actually do the things that I teach. It's saying, listen, I'm not just saying God is my designer. It's not an acknowledgement of him. It's bigger than that. It's allowing the outcomes to be determined. It's allowing the designer to design. It's called faith. It is trusting that what God wants to build in my life, this is tough for all of us I do it my way kind of people. It is saying that I trust that God has a better plan for me than I have. That's what it means to follow Jesus. It is us putting aside our but I want, but I think, but I know, but this is what. It's me putting away my personal feelings, but I feel more, I think, and saying I choose to give authority to God as he is the designer, and then as he starts to design, I'm going to allow him the outcomes of designing my life. And then faithful is the person who listens and does, who responds to that, who when God begins to shape our life doesn't constantly push back. That we move toward that, not move away from it. Instead of saying, I've got my faith life and my regular life and my work life and my family life, I go, it's his life, and I am fitting within it because I know that he is my foundation. He is the one that makes things tick. He is the one that will keep me moving in a right direction. If we're going to do that, if you want to be found faithful, if you want a life that you would say your children or your friends or your family or your mama and your daddy look at you and say, you know what, I can say some things that they're not. I tell you this, that lady, that person, that human, that guy is faithful. If you want to do that, let me tell you what faithful is not. Firstly, that's a great word, huh? First of all, what faithful is not, and this may be the most important thing I say, faithful is not just trying harder. Because that's what I've done most of my life. I feel like what I've got to do, if I want to do the right things, I just got to try hard. I got to wake up earlier. I got to focus, quit doing stupid things, quit saying things. I say over and over, I'm never going to say that. I'm never going to think that. I'm never going to go there. I'm not going to judge people that way. I'm not going to have that attitude anymore. I'm going to be more grateful. All of those things, and I'm going to try harder. I try to focus and willpower my way to it. My frustration with that is usually however hard I try, I still come up short. And then I feel like, how screwed up am I? But let me just say this to you, that faithful is not going to be the person who tries the hardest doesn't win in this. The person who has the most willpower does not finish life found faithful. It doesn't work that way. There's something bigger. That's if it was my life. That's the way it would be. It would be me. It's all about me. It's me trying. It's me doing. But it's not my life. It's his life that he is allowing me to steward or work through. And so faithfulness is not trying harder to do the right things. Faithfulness is becoming a person who naturally does the right things. A few weeks ago, we were sitting in the room that I'm standing in now, and Jeremy made this statement. And when he made it, I thought, well, that's a great statement. And then I watched, and people all around me shook their head like, yep, that's a great point. And his thought was, wouldn't it be great if we would become people who don't just try to do right things, don't just try to do better, but wouldn't it be great if we literally became people who naturally did it? That God's not trying to change my behavior. He's trying to change me into a person who would naturally say the right things, that would naturally do the right things. It wouldn't be me waking up saying, God, please help me today not to say those things, not to do those things, not to get involved in that stuff, not to click that site, not to crave those things. God, help me, please help me not. Instead, wouldn't it be great if I could naturally become the person, or if I could just become the person who naturally did the right thing, said the right thing, went the right places? That when people were around me, they go, I love to be around that guy. When I'm around him, I feel like I become a better person. I would love that to be said of me because it was true. That would be amazing. There's a difference in trying to do the right thing and becoming a person who naturally does it. That's how we're going to define faithful. And by the way, you may never perfect that, but I believe it's possible. If we dig in a little further, we might say this: being faithful requires us to invite God into our real life. Not to say, I'll invite God into my go to church day, I'll invite God to my little time I set aside, but inviting him into our real life. When we bump into situations, and by the way, you will before the day is out, and if you don't, before tomorrow's out. When you go to work and you hit those frustration moments, because some of you work with people who we're going to use a really nice way of saying it and say they're frustrating. You got some frustrating places in your work world. Some of you have got a house full of kids, and they're difficult, and they require a lot. Sometimes it feels like they require a lot and don't offer a lot back. So it's like I give and give and give and not a whole lot comes back. Some of you are married to people like that. Some of you are in relationships with people that you pray every day, God, if you would make that better. Some people, you're not in a relationship and that is your frustration. You pray all the time, God, give me somebody. I talk to people often who are like, I just need a somebody. I feel so lonely. I just think God put me on this earth to have a somebody. And then the same day I'll talk to somebody who will say, I am praying that God will remove this somebody from my life because I have a somebody and I just need to be alone. And we've all got some of that when we hit those frustrating things. When we go to the doctor and we hit that frustrating moment, when we get a call, when we look at our bank account. In all of those moments, how can we invite God into our real life? Not separate him for church or a quiet time or a devotional or a small group or a thing we do. How can we invite him into the real life stuff? And here's a question I want us to learn. This is one that has benefited me so much when I use it. And it's this question: God, in this moment, right now, God, what is going on in me right now that you and I need to deal with? It's when we deal with frustrating things. For some of you, it's when you get home from work and you walk through the door and all hell breaks loose because that's your home. Congratulations. Welcome home. And there's all these people who've been waiting for you to get home because they need something, want something. They may be thrilled to see you, but there's a whole life going on there you're walking into. And if that is you, in that moment, before you respond, before you react, before you dig in, to be able to stop and say, God, what is going on in me right now? The question is not what's going on in there. When you go to work and you know you're about to have the meeting and you know the meeting is not going to be easy, before you walk into the meeting to say, God, what's going on in me right now? Let's me and you deal with me. But my problem's not me, my problem's the meeting. The reality is God's going to allow the meeting. God's going to allow your home. God's going to allow your crazy relatives. God's going to allow your situation. He's going to allow your medical things. He's going to allow those because he's working in you. And what he wants to do in that moment is not fix that thing. He wants to fix you. God, what is going on in me right now that only you and I can fix? Before I deal with that, let's deal with me. And what that's doing is it is inviting God into the real moments of your life. And it's different than saying, God, fix those crazy people. God, take those things out of my life. God, change that. It's saying, God, would you change me so as I walk through this, I can become the person who naturally deals with difficult life well. You know what it is? It's building your life on a solid foundation, which means you have to custom design every piece of your life to fit that rock. It's not prefab. It's not just a little thing, a little cookie cutter that God just stamps out people that all look the same. It's God being invited into your everyday, every second, real life stuff. And when you do, here's the crazy thing. Some of you prayed prayers and go, God never answers my prayers. Ask God this today, tomorrow, when you run in before a situation, when you're in the middle of it, if you can call time out and just step away for a minute and say, God, what's going on in me right now? Not, could you fix my wife or my husband? Could you heal my crazy people in my life? Could you give me a job where I don't have to deal? In the middle of that, to say, God, what is going on in me that you and I, because he has brought those things into our life to help us grow. And when we invite God into it, he will answer this prayer over and over. For me, when I do that and I can get my own agenda out of the way, I never struggle to figure out that I go, listen, here's my deal. Right now, I want to control an outcome instead of trusting God to. Right now, what I want is I want to fix, I want to be in charge, I want my things. And if I can do that with God, I always end up quickly coming to the conclusion that this is about me. And if I can get me in the right spirit, it doesn't mean all the outcomes are perfect. It means as a result of that encounter, God will shape me. He will make me into what I need to. Here's some things that'll help us with this. How do I know if I am doing well? How do I score this thing? Am I getting better or worse? Am I growing or shrinking? Am I stuck in the same spot? I want to give you a couple things to think about. How am I reacting? When I hit those frustrating parts of life, I'm saying that because that's better than all the other things. When I go through difficult days, difficult situations, and those come up, sometimes your phone will ring or vibrate and you hit it and there's a situation you didn't anticipate encountering. And when it does, am I reacting? Let's define that. Reacting is our natural reflex without God's involvement in our life. For me, when I get hit with things that I don't like, I didn't anticipate, I don't want in my life, when there's people who push back at me, when there's situations that are tense or frustrating or stressful, here's my natural reaction, is my natural reflex. It doesn't really include God. And for me, I'll just cut to the chase, a moment of more honesty than what you may have asked for. For me, that's going to sound like this. It's going to be sarcastic. For me, it'll turn really critical. To me, it'll be negative. I'll feel my heart rate go up. I'll feel my words get sharper. I'll watch in me my attitude tighten. I'll feel my muscles tighten. I'll feel everything in my life gets constricted at that moment. And that's when I know that is me. That is, by the way, that's me. If you want to know me, that's me. Outside of God, that is my natural reflex. I'm going to argue it, fight it, push back against it. Outside of God, that is my reflex. That is me reacting, by the way. And we all have some of that. Some of it may not be as outward. Some people shut down and they pull back. That's the way they control their environment. I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to ignore you. I'm going to shut down. I'm going to close off. I'm going to step out. You can do whatever you want, but you know what? I don't care. Passive, aggressive, whichever way you get there, we all have some reactions. The other option is, am I reacting or am I responding? And this is a choice we get to make. And if you want to see how you're doing, here's the way we do it. Responding is the outcome when I include God in the equation. It's when I'm put in a tense situation and I say, before I react, I say, God, what's going on inside of me right now? What's going on in me that me and you need to deal with? Well, I'm not the issue. It's my wife. I'm not the issue, it's my boss. I'm not the issue, it's employees that I can't get to do anything that they're supposed to do. I'm not the issue, it's my ungrateful kids. I'm not the issue, it's my fill in the blank. And here's the reality. You may not be the issue, but you are at issue. What God will do in that moment is He will either allow you to walk through it and take the beating from life that comes our way, or He will use that to actually create something good. He'll redeem that by molding you and shaping you and me. If we will choose to include Him in it, we respond. Now, we've talked in this series, and we use cliches because sometimes cliches are the best words we have. One of them that we've used is we have to learn to live our life near Jesus. Now, I know if you're overly realistic in that, you go, I can't live my life near Jesus. He is not here. He wasn't here, and then He was here for some guys that He talked to, so being near Jesus was a big deal to them. But then He died, and He wasn't near them, and they kind of freaked out because they weren't near Jesus. But then the truth is He came back, and they were near Jesus, and that helped. But then He left again. And that's where we are. How am I near Jesus? And even if there was a Jesus on earth, would He be in Tennessee or Arkansas or Missouri or wherever you're watching this from? Would He be there? And Jesus knew that was going to be an issue. And so before He left, He said, listen, I have been here with you to help you, but I'm going to give you another me, except this me won't be limited to location. This me will be my Spirit, and He'll live within those who choose to follow Him. I'll live within you. I'll be your counselor and your teacher. I'll be the one who helps you through life and helps mold and shape you. It's His Spirit that lives within us. And here's what the reality is. When we react, it comes from our natural reflexive selves that are outside of God. But as a follower of Jesus, when I respond, it means I invite Him, God, what's going on in me? Let's deal with me right now. And when I do that, my reactions turn to responses. And they say, the Bible gives us, said, here's the outcome of having God's Spirit active in my life. Make sense? Here's the outcome. Maybe it would be called the fruit of the Spirit. This is what happens. Your outcomes will look like this: love and joy and peace and patience and kindness and goodness and faithfulness and gentleness and self-control. When people watch you, they'll go, that guy he's been different in the past. That woman, I tell you what, there's words that people have for her sometimes. You know what? Instead of withdrawing or hiding or lashing out, that all of a sudden my responses may not always be perfect, but they'll be characterized by love and joy and peace. And what I'll have happening is, as God forms me, my life will be based on that bedrock foundation, not on the situation I'm dealing with today. And for a lot of us, we live our life and we're just as good as the thing we're going through right now. And what God wants to do is be a part of our everyday life. He wants us to invite Him in. God, what is going on in my life right now? I'll just tell you this before we wrap up. There's some things that are going to make that almost impossible. To allow God, because that's a relational thing, to allow God into our everyday life. Here's the first one, is hurry. Hurry. We talk about it around here quite a bit. We need to ruthlessly eliminate hurry from our life. And for some people that love the adrenaline of hurry, sometimes they'll say to me, why is that such a big deal? What is the pushback on that? And here's the reason: that hurry destroys relationships. You can hurry through a lot of things. You can hurry and do a lot of things. You can't hurry relationships. Relationships require presence. Not being somewhere, that's not presence. Presence is deeper than that. It's being fully engaged in where you are and with whom you're sharing the moment. Relationships cannot survive. Hurry suffocates relationships. I'll give you another one. Relationship blocker is distractions. I used to believe the way that the enemy gets us far from our faith being what it should be is he gets us to believe the wrong things. I no longer believe that. I don't think the enemy requires getting us to believe the untrue. I think what the enemy requires is us staying distracted enough to not recognize the truth. That's why Jesus said, those who hear and follow, because we're recognizing that there's something greater than me at work. Distractions, what you repeatedly give your mind to, you gradually give your heart to. Man, this is a tough one for me. Even when reading that one smacks me right in the forehead, you know? What you consistently give your mind to, you will gradually give your heart to. And distractions, piece by piece, moment by moment, lead us off the course we're supposed to be. The third one is a competing agenda. Part of the problem is what I say to God is, God, I want you to make my life matter. I want you to make it meaningful. I want to become the person you want me to become. I want to be found faithful. But on the other side, I've got this, but what I want in life is I'm kind of pushing that way. And when there's competing agendas, when two people are rowing in opposite directions, you end up going in circles. And you know what? You feel stuck. And I know there's people that are watching this right now because it's the thing I get most. Chris, I just feel stuck in life right now. I feel like there's something else out there, but I feel stuck right where I am. I feel like I'm on this treadmill and I'm not moving forward, but I'm working hard to stay where I am. You know what it leads to? It leads to exhaustion. I feel like no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, I end up in the same stupid spot, facing the same stupid things. And sometimes it's because we've got competing agendas, and with competing agendas, it beats us up. Can I just tell you this? When we can learn to say this, matter of fact, if you would just memorize that sentence, there's no magic to the words. There's magic to the feeling behind it. God, what is going on right now? Not big picture, not some theological. What's going on in my heart, in my mind, in my being right now that you and I need to deal with? I'm inviting you in to fix me before I go fix the rest of the world. I'm inviting you in. I'm taking my eyes off all the things that I don't like, and I'm putting them on you, because in the end, you are my bedrock. You are my foundation. And if I want to be found faithful, and I do, if I want to be found faithful, this is life-changing for me. I have to be willing to invite God into the great, thanks for watching. Great you did that. I've got to invite God into my real life when I'm not just all God-upped. I'm not all focused on God. I've got to invite him into my driving down the road life when I got to deal with the maniacs in the world. I've got to invite him into my go to the store and I wish I could afford it. That costs so much. I've got to invite him into my work life, my family life, my real life. I have to invite him in over and over again, and give him enough authority in my life to fix me, and trust that when I allow him to fix me, he is working on the things around me. Because here's the reality, I can't control him anyway. Last thing I'll say. For some of you, you're fighting so hard to make this part of your life, and I know you are. I hear those stories, I watch. And I see some of you who are fighting, and you keep fighting, but you feel like I'm not doing good enough. I keep fighting to get better, but I'll be honest, I feel like I take 2 steps forward and 1 step backwards. And I want to just say this to you. Faithful is not perfect. Faithful is not flawless. I grew up in my home. My dad was, therefore we all were supposed to be Dallas Cowboy fans. I grew up, I'm admitting it, my name is Chris, and I grew up a Dallas Cowboys fan. Now, I could say I grew up a Dallas Cowboys fan and then I grew up, so I'm over that. Except some of you will really resent that, so I would never say it. But I grew up that way. There was a guy who was a running back for them, and he ran for thousands of yards, ended up in the Hall of Fame. His name is Tony Dorsett. I remember hearing Tony Dorsett speak once, and he said, I have run the ball over 2,800 times. And out of that, over 2,500 of those times, I've been tackled. That they gave me the ball with the goal of the end zone, and I did not make it. And he said, you know what made me a Hall of Famer wasn't my ability to never get tackled. What gave me the ability to be a Hall of Famer is that I was never going to be somebody who didn't get back up and do it again. That for every time someone tackled me, I went back to the huddle and said, give me the ball again. Give me another chance. It's not the ability to never fall down. It is the ability to keep getting up. And for some of you, you feel like I've tried so hard, and I want to be that guy. I want to be that woman. I want to be that person that others look at with respect. I want to be that person who my family looked back at me, who my mom and dad looked back at me, who my friends look back at me and say, you know what, he wasn't perfect, but I know this, that guy's faithful. Just like I want to be. And if that's you, and sometimes you feel like I keep getting tackled, get back up. Hall of Famers are made of getting back up and keep moving forward. Don't allow the fall down to be your defining moment. Stand back up. And if you screwed something up, own it, invite God into it, and follow him, and it will not be a perfect path. There's not one of us that's ever lived that's been that way. And if you feel like I can't move forward because I've fallen too much, the Hall of Fame is built for people who kept getting up. Keep getting up and keep moving forward. God, what's going on in my heart, in my life, in my being, that only you and I need to deal with right now? That is the answer of becoming a person who someday naturally just does what you're supposed to do, that has an attitude I'm supposed to have. I don't constantly have to fight against it, that little by little God forms me as I follow him. And he's designing a life for me that's better than the life of my own. Don't underestimate what God's doing in your life. If you will follow, allow him to form, he will build in you a life where you'll be found faithful. And it is worth the extra work. And it is worth the extra thought. And mostly it is worth the extra submission to God's authority in my life to allow him to be the designer and builder and me to be the steward of the life he's given me. Don't underestimate what he's doing in your life. Let's pray. So God, that is so easy to say. Well, it's not even all that easy to say. It's just easy to think. It all sounds so wonderful when it's all dressed up and tied up with a bow. It is so difficult in the middle of my moments where I get so lost in my own garbage. And I just ask you to help me keep turning back to you as my foundation, my bedrock. It's so stupid I have to ask you to help me to invite you to help me. How weird is that? But God, would you help me not get distracted and in such a hurry, and not allow my agenda to outrun yours? Would you help me to live a life that somewhere down the road, people look at me and they see you because of the love, the joy, the peace, the patience, the kindness, the gentleness, and the self-control that you've built in me that aren't natural to me? Would you help me live that life and in the end, be found faithful? I ask it in your name. Amen. Hey, thanks for watching.